I'm back. Did you miss me? Happy New Year. Merry belated Christmases to all of you. I know it's not probably helping right now because you guys are probably ticked off. I know you're kind of down. I know the Eagles have ticked you off. They've ruined your New Year's, all that other stuff. But I'm going to see if I can bring in a little positivity because I promise you're going to get enough negativity from Jake when he joins the show. I plan for a triumphant return. I think the last time I saw you guys, I told you guys that the Eagles could walk into Dallas and win. I promise you that the Dallas Cowboys were a Super Bowl team. We're not a Super Bowl team. That promise I kept to you. And I told you why. Because they're the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to do what they've done for, almost 3 decades now? They're the Dallas Cowboys. They do what they do. They fail in big moments. I don't care how good it looks for you for any particular moment at any particular time. The Dallas Cowboys were not going to beat the Buffalo Bills. They were not going to beat the Miami Dolphins. And I still hold true to some things that I told you guys. I was honest with you when I told you that I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys for a bevy of reasons. But one of those reasons would be in both situations was you were playing two good teams who had bullseyes on this team and had 10 days of rest. While the Philadelphia Eagles were going through the gauntlet of their schedule. I was going to tell you guys that everything was all right because we told ourselves if they went through this gauntlet and we saw them beat Kansas City and we saw them beat Buffalo and we saw them take that first game in Dallas, we said we could live with a loss to the San Francisco 49ers. We'll see them again in the NFC Championship game. We could live with a loss to the Dallas Cowboys. I was going to remind you that because I sat there and said, even in this gauntlet, they finished about 500 in this gauntlet. Time changes things. I will not be able to enjoy the triumphant return I have told you about because what I didn't plan for was for Drew Lock to go 92 yards in less than 2 minutes and win with a touchdown pass. I didn't plan for that. I planned for a New York Giants win on Christmas. I knew that was going to happen. What I didn't plan for was for the Arizona Cardinals to walk into Lincoln Financial Field and do what they did to Philadelphia this past Sunday. That was tough to watch. And what I will say is this. There is still hope. I know y'all don't want to believe that, but there is still reason to be hopeful. Everyone told me that this team was finished in 2017 when Carson Wentz was gone. Everybody told me that this team was finished on Christmas in 2017. We watched whatever that was against the, I guess at that time, the Oakland Raiders. Everything turned out all right. I have seen this team lose some very bad-looking games a lot of times during the course of my lifetime of watching Philadelphia Eagles football. They have done some dumb things. They have done some very disappointing things. I was disappointed in the Super Bowl. I was disappointed at the end of the year. It was a tough 2023. The Eagles helped us with that. But I'm starting to have visions of Rich Kotite. 7-2 starts, 7-9 finishes. 10-1 start, plummeting to the wild card round. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to lose to the Washington Commanders. I'm not sure if the Philadelphia Eagles will beat the New York Giants at this time. But I remain confident for one reason because I still believe the San Francisco 49ers loss, the Dallas Cowboys loss, was because they played two teams that validated themselves. We forget that. The San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys validated themselves by beating the Philadelphia Eagles. This was the best team in the NFL until San Francisco took that from them. We forget about that part. I believe this team can turn it around because I've seen football teams turn it around all the time. Nobody thought when the undefeated New England Patriots had blown through their schedule that the team they beat in the final week of the season was going to meet them in the Super Bowl and possibly win that game. So it is possible. Will it happen? I'm not sure. I hope it does. I think this team can go into Tampa Bay and win. But the thing that concerns me now is what I saw from the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, and that is this team got punked in their own stadium by a 3-win team, and they were dominated. That bothers me. But what bothers me more so than that is the fact that the body language looked bad. This team looked very, very bad in that loss. And I have not seen a Philadelphia Eagles team perform that badly in those type of circumstances. If it's ever happened, I really don't remember it. That's what concerns me. Can they turn that around? They can rebound from losing to the Arizona Cardinals. They rebounded from losing to the Oakland Raiders in 2017. They rebounded. What was that? A year after that in Miami, after that loss, when they needed that win to get into the postseason. This team can rebound from some tough losses. I don't know if this team can rebound from a lack of willpower and a lack of emotion and what we saw on Sunday. That's my take. Jake and Brandon will most certainly give you theirs. We welcome into the broadcast. What's up, brothers? How y'all doing?
Fire everyone. Promote Mike Clay to head coach. Man, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm broken. I'm tattered, shattered, ruined. I don't know every bad word. I'm a dead man.
Brandon? Well, you're not dead. How are you doing, Brandon?
Inside. 2024 literally cannot be worse than 2023. That was a bad football year.
I mean, honestly, just that feeling like disappointment, where it's like there's obviously the escalation you could take with it, but we've talked about on this show what this stretch meant to this team, what they had to do to prove, at least in my eyes, what they could do in the playoffs. The red button's pressed already. It's already down. The siren's going off, and it's like, I think at this point, it's more important to analyze what is actually going on, more so than looking at, how did they fix it? Because it's very interesting to me how it seems, and I love what you brought up, Jeff, at the beginning, how they went from this 10-1 just juggernaut of a team, just seemingly getting everything rolling, to where they're at now. And maybe they were never that team. Maybe they did get lucky in a lot of games, a lot of different situations. And the fact that the ball is rolling the opposite direction instead of the Eagles' direction is causing all these breakdowns. But I'm just interested to see how it all plays out, because the crazy thing about this season is they're guaranteed a playoff spot. It's not like their season ends. They are locked into a playoff spot.
Jake, you don't look pumped, man. I'm going to say it like this, man. I was not as disheartened by what we saw on Christmas versus the New York Giants as a lot of other people. I'm going to tell you why that is, because it's the New York Giants. This is an NFC East rivalry. It's been going on since before we were born. It will go on long after we're dead. And our grandchildren are watching this team. The New York Giants thing was not as concerning for the fact that regardless of what goes on, these teams always play tight games, regardless of the records. I've seen some – stop, Jake. I've seen a lot of situations where some messed up stuff has happened to this football team. And I referenced the Miami – I wanted to get you guys' take on that, because I referenced the Miami Dolphins loss to Brian Flores. I referenced the loss on Christmas in 2017. A little over 6 years ago now, to the Oakland Raiders. We said this team was finished at that point. We said last season we were worried about this team because the same thing happened. In week 17, an inferior team, the New Orleans Saints, walked into the Lincoln Financial Field and punked this team. But it's without Jalen Hurts. I realized that. And we said the season was over then. It was not. This team made it to the Super Bowl. This can be turned around. The only reason I believe that it cannot be turned around is if we don't get this team out of what we saw as far as body language. And we're asking ourselves questions about, do they trust this coach? Have they given up on Nick Sirianni? Seth Joyner, who I got a lot of respect for, he blew all that up. But I talked to Devontae Smith during the bye week. Devontae Smith was fine. This team still believed. I don't know if this team believes now, and I'm starting to wonder if the issues came in the Seattle Seahawks loss. I think they were fine after San Francisco. I think they were fine after getting blown out in Dallas. I think San Francisco did something to them, and I don't think they bounced back from it. Y'all talk me out of it if I'm wrong.
So to start with the difference between this and the Super Bowl year, the Super Bowl year, that was a building. That was supposed to be a building year. That entire year, they didn't have the expectations. They didn't have a $50 million quarterback. And then for them, and you mentioned the 10-1 thing, that was less than a month ago, man. That was, or I guess just about a month ago. That was at the beginning of December. The Eagles had one win in all of December. And that's the point of the year where you're supposed to be playing your best football. And they got one win. They got one win against Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor. What do you it's their oh my God, it's brutal. So the difference is that, like, when they got to that point and they're playing, they had that bad game in the Raiders in 2018. It was like, okay, this is bad. This is not good, but it was kind of a culmination of what the beginning of the season was kind of feeling like before Carson went on his MVP tear. But then it got better. Then magic happened. Then it was magic. The end of that season was pure magic. That was the fact that they went beyond everybody's possible expectation was magic. This year, and that's why it's so fun to have a team like last year. So fun where the team didn't have the Super Bowl expectation. When you do have the expectations, it's just every week is a freaking grind, man. Every week is such a grind. And I think that grinding caught up to him. And you mentioned that you think it was something that did you say that you think it was something that Seattle did, or did you say it was something that San Francisco
I believe
did?
everything broke in the Seattle game. I think they were fine after San Francisco. I think they were fine after the Dallas loss. You played two good teams who had spotlighted this team. And we forget at the time, the Cowboys validated themselves by beating the Eagles. San Francisco 49ers validated themselves as a true Super Bowl contender because they were on a three-game losing streak, and we said they were finished.
To me, and I've said this before, I think the turning point was Buffalo. I think the end of that Buffalo game was like that was us taking our last breath. Like, we did it. We played 92 effing snaps in a game, and we did it. When Jordan Davis chases Josh Allen off the sideline, that was the defense metaphorically dying when he fell on the ground and was just a giant man collapse. That was the defense collapsing, because since then, man, it's been not just bad. It's been hilariously, disgustingly, violently terrible from then to now. That was my turning point. And then they had to play San Francisco right after that, which, you're right, it was a team that was playing with a vindictive attitude. So like they not only went into that game dog tired, but they went into that game were dog tired and then just got the absolute doors blown off. They just got a foot all the way up to the knee up their ass. Like, it was, they got punished, and then they got punished again, and then they went to Seattle, and everything was bad there. And then congratulations, you beat a bad New York team. And then, oh man, I don't know. To me, I think the change happened with the Buffalo game.
I'm a little rusty. I put up week 17, 18 losses first. We changed it to week 17. I'm back on track. Go ahead, Brandon.
We're manifesting is what we're doing.
It's
manifesting week 18 loss.
It's very interesting, right? Because I think there is ways to go about it with, like, I agree with what both you guys said, and I think there is evidence that both of those points were where this downturn started. But I think, and a lot of the comments have been saying this, right? It's so much of it is the coaching, and so much of it is the play calling and everything revolving around that, right? So you get past the Buffalo game, right? After the 49ers and Dallas game, the fact that they made, and I personally, for me, I think this is where everything truly started to snowball. Because, look, you did get blown out by the Cowboys and 49ers. They were probably two of the three best teams in the NFC, if not in the NFL. There's no shame in that. You obviously want the Eagles to play more competitively against those teams, but that's something where you can build off it. The fact that they made in my eyes, a panic move in the middle of a season, shifting from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, that was the opening salvo for me, where I'm like, oh, they're not, something's not right here. The minute after that happens, the Seattle game with the collapse on defense and end the game and the bad play calling, and then the Giants game. Let's face it, Darren Waller catches 2 passes. The Philadelphia Eagles lose that game, or it's at least going to overtime. Yes, the Eagles did pretty well in that game. Yes, they forced a turnover, right? If Darren Waller catches 2 passes where there's literally no defenders behind him, the Eagles probably lose that game.
Yep.
And then you move on to this Cardinals game where the Arizona Cardinals, a team where their offense has been in the mud for the better part of a month, they didn't punt.
That bothered me. Yeah.
They did not punt the football. They drove down the field every single drive, and the only reason they didn't score is because they turned the ball over. That's it. The Cardinals were getting whatever they wanted at will. So the fact that you make that defensive coaching change in the middle of the season and things have gotten worse.
Oh my God.
I mean, one, it's Matt Patricia, so we probably should have expected it. But number two, like, you're expecting, you don't know if Patricia and Desai run the same scheme. You don't know if the verbiage is different. So if you're having these issues already on defense, aren't you exacerbating I probably said that word wrong. Are you exacerbating? Are you that word or elevating the problem to a point where now the defensive strugglers are going up to a 10? On top of the fact that the offensive play calling outside of a few plays where they're using the middle of the field looks as bad as ever, where it's the same run concept over and over and over again, to the point that when the Eagles try to do something different, like a QB option off of it, the defense knows exactly what's coming. The fact that the QB draw play is basically ineffective at this point, the fact that there's really no play action pass game for this team, the fact that this offense with some of the best playmakers in all the NFL is resorting to having to trudge down the field and the explosive plays are few and far between. There are so many different issues with this team, but they all boil down to coaching in my eyes. Yes, the players aren't executing at times. Yes, for example, Jalen Hurts maybe hasn't been the upper echelon MVP version of himself. Did we ever think about, though, and I think this is the main thing, that the play calling is having such an effect on Hurts that him thinking he might have to be Superman every single game might be affecting his mental makeup and how he has to play the game. It's just, there's so many broken things in my eyes that it's not just one problem anymore.
So I think you're right about that, especially the play. So we talked about it when he had that. I think that was after the Seattle game when he had the press conference. He said the issue here is commitment. Then later on in the week, he had another press conference thing where he said that I'm talking about myself when it's this. So yeah, 100%. The guy's he literally said it. The one time the guy's not speaking in metaphors. He says, yeah, I'm the one who's not committed. Yeah, the guy who touches the ball on every single play has an issue with the play calling. How is that going to bleed over into everybody else? Of course it is. This offense is so bland and dumb and dry and awful. And oh my God, man, it's just so bad. Everything is bad. Everything hurts. Pain everywhere.
Two things. Well, I want to talk about I still believe in Jalen a little bit. We're going to talk about Nick Sirianni, obviously, but let's talk about coaching. Terrence Granted here says that all the coordinators should be fired. Brian Johnson is probably going to get fired. I do not, however, believe this is Brian Johnson's fault. Brian Johnson is calling plays from Nick Sirianni's playbook.
And Nick Sirianni's been incredibly outspoken about put all the blame on me. It's like, you sure about that, Nick?
And you're supposed to, though, because when Nick Sirianni gave up play calling in the first place, the reason he gave up play calling was for situations like this. So we didn't have issues with substitutions. So if there was a conversation about a play call on offense or something like that, it could be vetoed. Nick Sirianni gave up play calling for situations like this. The thing I'm aggravated about, this is the coaching issue I have. Devontae Smith is the lead blocker on a screen pass on a 3rd 20 that was thrown to Kenneth Gainwell, I believe it was.
Sure was.
My issue is Jonathan Gannon's game plan was this. I'm going to kick an onside kick because I feel like if I give the Eagles the ball back with 5 minutes, they're going to bleed the clock out.
Smartest thing
I'm
he's
going to
ever
think
done.
about this. We're going to give them a short field. Either we get the ball back and it's cool, or we give them a short field and they score. Either way, I get the ball back in the hands of Kyler Murray. What we didn't account for was the fact that that drive was going to end in 3 points. That's not what was supposed to happen. It was 1st and 10, if I'm not mistaken, from the 20-yard line. Yeah. Forgive me if I'm wrong, because I paid less attention to that game as that game started to wear on. Because that game, at the end of the game, even though they had the ball, it felt like Seattle again.
It felt inevitable. It felt inevitable.
That was my question.
It felt like Seattle again. I saw Seattle line up with 1st and 10 at the 8-yard line, and I wasn't confident the Eagles were going to lose that game. I wasn't confident they were going to win that game. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was leaning more towards the Eagles are probably going to screw this up some kind of way.
Yeah.
The Giants game, I'm watching that with bated breath because I'm expecting them to lose that game. When they didn't, I was ecstatic, but I was sitting here saying to myself, something bad could still happen here.
Oh, yeah.
Based off what I've seen this entire game. And when it's 1st and 10 from the 20, penalty knocks it back to 1st and 20 from the 30 now? Is that right? So it's 1st and 30. 2 run plays to Jalen Hurts. And a screen pass on 3rd and 20 to Kenneth Gainwell with Devontae Smith as your lead blocker, and now Devontae Smith is injured. How irritated are we by that decision?
And not
Why?
just 2 run
Just
plays to Jalen Hurts, but 1 for 3 yards or 4 yards, and then 1 for -3 yards. Like, buddy, their whole thing. So, okay, I have some thoughts on this. Number one, and they were afraid to throw the ball deep because they didn't want Jalen Hurts to get sacked, and they didn't want to lose yardage. Losing yardage would make it a tougher field goal for Jake Elliott. Now, here's my biggest issue with all this. Jake Elliott has been the most consistent player on this team this entire year. Easily the most consistent player on this team the entire year. He's the good guy. He's the one good guy we got. I'm not just saying that because his name is Jake. But the other thing is that coaches are so like they never put the blame on players. They're never like, okay, yeah, this was a bad decision. Even when Nick Sirianni said we chose to throw that ball in San Francisco to get Seattle in order to get a pass interference. I don't believe that was the actual reason behind it, but I think that's the decision that was made, and I think it was very dumb. I think he was covering for somebody, and that might have been Jalen Hurts that he was covering for. But then when it comes to kicking, they're like, well, we want to make it easier on our kicker. What the hell makes you think that Jake Elliott needs it to be easier? The guy's automatic from 50 plus. The wind was blowing at him. Jake Elliott doesn't give a damn about the wind. Jake Elliott is Wind Waker. Jake Elliott has a magical wand like Zelda, and he waves it, and he doesn't care about the wind. Why? We're going to act like Jake Elliott cares about the wind now? What are you talking about? He can do anything. The man is, he's inevitable, is what he is. And then I don't like it one bit to say we needed to make it easier on our kicker, who's the best player on the team. It's so, and it's not even frustrating. It's ire inducing. It's done with it, man.
Like here's the thing, right? So they have that mindset. They want to make it easier on their kicker. Why is that? Why are those the play calls then? When all the Eagles have shown this entire season is the if we're in trouble button, we run with Jalen Hurts. That's been their entire situation like that the entire season. And then the screen, I really didn't understand why they had Devonta Smith blocking like that. You're basically asking for him to get caught underneath. You're asking for him to get hurt in that situation where, yeah, Smith is a great all-around player, but look at what happened with the Texans with Tank Dell. It's the same type of thing. And obviously, it's football. Like, guys are going to get hurt. Guys have that mentality where they're just going to scrap it up no matter what. But if you have the option to have a guy lead block, I don't know. Why not have A.J. Brown do it? Right?
A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, the guy that is basically like your pseudo third tight end at this point, / big slot. Why don't you have him lead block? The guys that maybe have like almost 100 pounds on Devonta Smith.
Or Olamide Zaccheaus, who doesn't care who he hits. Olamide Zaccheaus is just offensive Sidney Brown.
Olamide Zaccheaus is a better receiving Zach Pascal.
And now
I want Olamide Zaccheaus back on this team. Like, I see grit. I see playing hard whether I have the football or not. And this team needs more of that. If this team had 11 or 9 to 11 Olamide Zaccheaus on this team, We might have something there. But
like here's the thing with that though. You run the 2 quarterback runs, gets you nothing. You've run the screen, gets you barely anything, right? You lose Devonta Smith, who was in a walking boot and crutches after the game, which is just a gigantic blow if he has to miss considerable time, because now you're down, you're a 1B option legitimately, and you still end up losing the game because your defense can't stop a cold.
No.
So every possible thing that could have went wrong at the end of that game went wrong. Now, where that blame falls to, I think that's a bigger discussion. But the fact of the matter is, the way the Eagles went about the end of that game, it's as bad as it can be. Literally as bad as it can be.
well, Nick Sirianni got outcoached by Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, he did.
That's number one.
Not even by a little bit.
No.
Number two, this is another issue because, okay, so here's my thing. Another issue I have here is this. Devontae Smith, for him to end up being a lead blocker, they didn't have by accident. That's a design play.
That's a design. It's
designed for Devontae Smith to be a lead blocker. That is an issue.
Oh, we didn't talk about them
Mr.
using a
Grant said
timeout
earlier,
for that play either.
The coordinators are going to be blamed for a lot of this. Matt Patricia should be blamed for a lot of this. The issue that you brought up, the Matt Patricia switch a little bit earlier, Brandon, and my thing is, though Sean Desai never lost his title as defensive coordinator and everything, we basically look as defensive coordinators as guys who plow plays, even though there's a lot more to their job than that. I don't know if they keep Matt Patricia. I definitely don't think they keep Matt Patricia if Nick Sirianni is out of here. If we know anything about Jeffrey Lurie and we know anything about Howie Roseman, they're very good at identifying whether or not this needs to continue, and they have no problem making a switch and doing so quickly. We have asked questions about Nick Sirianni for a while, and the questions have been, did Nick Sirianni win last year because he had good players? Is Nick Sirianni actually a good coach? Is he a leader of men? This is about to get answered now. And he's got week 18 and the first week of the playoffs to prove it. Nick's credibility is on the line. They're questioning whether or not he's lost his team. He says he hasn't lost his team. He said, we just need to get through this. I'm watching bad body language. I'm seeing like anonymous quotes now. If Nick Sirianni is the good coach that we have defended him for being, because we sat here and said that everybody was wrong when we just said he was winning because of players. If Nick Sirianni is a great coach, we will find it out these next 2 games.
He's not. He's simply not. The amount of errors that he makes game in and game out are mind. Again, he ran out of timeouts because he used them earlier in the freaking half, so that he only had 1 timeout, and he used that before that screenplay because of a miscommunication on the personnel. Like, what are you doing? That's you're wildly stupid. And you said that, is he losing his credibility? He lost his credibility when he said that he wasn't changing any play callers, and then demoted Sean Desai 2 days later. Like, his credibility is gone. He is a bad coach.
And here's the issue with that. Once you decide that you're not going to let Sean Desai call plays, regardless of what happened with Matt Patricia, you can't go back to Sean Desai now.
No. Sean Desai is never going to get another job. Sean Desai, that killed it. Okay, clearly Sean Desai was not the problem. Matt Patricia had 2 okay, bad, but closer to okay than terrible games against Drew Lock, freaking Tommy DeVito, and Tyrod Taylor. Those were in the same game. And then as soon as Matt Patricia plays a starting quarterback, he had the Cardinals had a better success rate in this. I believe, I don't know if it was the entire game, but I believe in the second half than the Chiefs had in the second half during the Super Bowl. That is how bad Matt Patricia's job was. He is beyond terrible. He's gone. There is no. I don't believe that anybody was going to keep their job. Maybe Nick. Maybe they got rid of Chip Kelly in 3 years. They got rid of Doug when he had a freaking Super Bowl ring in his closet. What, Nick, buddy? You're out of here, friend.
There is a possibility, and they probably should. You're probably right there, Jake. But there is a possibility that Nick stays and we get rid of Brian Johnson and use him as a scapegoat. Even though we've been blaming Brian Johnson and talking about how he needs to get fired all season long, And Brian Johnson is running Nick Sirianni's offense. That's the part. He's calling plays from Nick's playbook.
And Nick is incredibly open about that. I think that was last week or the week before that in his press conference. Like, people are blaming him. Blame me. It's my offense. Blame me. Buddy, that's a dumb thing to say, friend. There is a lot of hatred going towards that man.
So before you go, what do you think about this? If we get blown out in the playoffs, are you on board to fire the coach? Do we fire Nick Sirianni if Nick Sirianni stinks it up and this team is one and done in the playoffs?
Yeah.
It's tough because, like, for example, right, and this could help lead the conversation. Josina Anderson, who I don't think Philly has necessarily the best relationship with her all the time. She said changes circling the NFC East, one potential move would be unexpected. Do we think that could be Philadelphia? Because in this situation, right, where you are coming off a Super Bowl appearance, and everything just comes crumbling down to the point where, let's say in this hypothetical, the Eagles do get bounced by the Buccaneers in the first round, right? Is the fan base, is Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, on board with keeping the coach that just saw probably one of the bigger collapses over the second half of the season in recent NFL memory? If that's where the Eagles end up, I really don't think it would be off the table. Now, would it be necessarily the right move? I don't know, because personally, I think I'd want to see one more season, see how they rebuild the staff, see how they rebuild everything going forward, and see if Sirianni can actually make those adjustments in year 3. Or would that be year 4?
That will be year 4. This is year 3.
This is, or year 4. But at the same time, right, if you have that collapse and you only have that 1 year of success, I think it's a very legitimate possibility and not a bad decision if they just cleared everyone out and started from scratch.
Like, Jeffrey Lurie is like, he's smart. He's a good.
He's also not a very patient man.
No, he is not.
And we've seen, like, if Nick's not calling plays, what does he bring to the table? Like,
he's supposed to hold the team together, and even that is falling apart.
The only thing redeemable quality I think that we saw from Nick Sirianni was supposed to be a leader of men, regardless of all this other stuff. That was supposed to be the thing. That seems to be off the table now. So
exactly.
The thing is, if his most redeeming quality is being a leader, and the team doesn't want to follow him anymore, you almost have to get rid of him at that point, right, B?
Yeah, like, that's the thing. To what you and Jake just said, right? If he's supposed to be the leader of men, if he's supposed to be the guy that holds the locker room together, and you start seeing those cracks, well, he's not running the offense, but if it is his offense, that offense has stumbled during the back half of the season. He's the one that technically fired Sean Desai in play calling duties anyway, and then proceeded to see that defense get even worse. So basically, if you want to take it from like a 500-foot bird eye view, everything he's had an influence on, in a sense, has gotten worse.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's listen, it's very, very bad. And again, he's, in my mind, he's doing what everybody thought Mike McDaniel would do. Like, if the team starts to go through a rough spot, he's not going to be able to get him out of that. It's Mike McDaniel. He's quirky, funny guy. Turns out Nick Sirianni, kind of just an asshole, is what he is.
Here's the thing, too. Like, okay, so issue. And Terrence Grander says, basically, what he asking is, can we find someone if Nick Sirianni is replaced? And this is the thing about that. The Philadelphia, first of all, good point on the Josina Anderson thing, B. And I'll say this: trust Josina Anderson. Like, there's this fractured relationship with some of the fans in Philly. But let me tell you something about Josina Anderson. Players trust Josina Anderson.
She knows her stuff.
Nobody
She's
else.
Great.
Josina Anderson got to be in a relationship with some of the guys that covered his team in his city. So if Josina Anderson says something, it's because she got it from somebody. Because there are guys on this team who would talk to Josina Anderson before they talk to people on this team. So that's number one. The replacing Nick Sirianni thing is interesting because this is the thing the Philadelphia Eagles have done. They, in the Jeffrey Lurie era, we don't want retread head coaches. We don't want Frank Reich. I know that sounds attractive, but we don't want Frank Reich because the Eagles want to be ahead of the curve. They want to be the smart organization that goes out and finds those untapped talents that nobody else is looking at. Now, it worked one time, Andy Reid. it worked another time with Doug Peterson, but you also get some Chip Kellys. You get some. What was the coordinator's name? The first guy, 95, came in with the San Francisco offense and everything. The head coach then.
I was 4.
I don't think I was born.
I don't remember.
So Jeffrey Lurie comes in, and it's I get his name, defensive coordinator and everything. He actually brought the West Coast offense in. He brought John Gruden with him. He brought Ricky Waters from San Francisco. But the Eagles have this thing, Nick Sirianni. We don't want to get a established head coach that everybody knows with experience. We want the new, fresh, untapped guy that nobody's heard of, because the Eagles think they're a smarter organization than everybody else. And that's how we find our head coaches, by surprising people.
Well, my answer, and this guy is known, but I'm throwing every dollar I possibly can at Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. I'm basically being like, hey, we have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We have 2 of the best wide receivers in the league. We saw what you did with Jared Goff. Build an even better offense with Jalen Hurts and take over the league.
It's like Ray Rhodes is the guy.
Ray Rhodes, that's his name.
It would be so easy to find a head coach. Like this would be a phenomenal job.
It's a really good crop, and the Eagles would probably be the best job on the market.
Yeah,
bar
compared
none.
to what are you gonna go work for David Tepper? Like no, you're working for Howie Roseman, a bona fide genius. You're working for Jeffrey Lurie, who's just a great owner. Like this is this would be the most sought after job. Thinking of all of everybody else is firing their head coaches and their garbage teams going into garbage situations. Like you could get pretty much anybody you wanted, except for probably Bill Belichick.
The only drawback to this job is, as genius as Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are, they're also both meddlesome and they're control freaks, which is the one thing that turns people off about this job, which is why Doug left. Doug wasn't fired. Let's get that out of the way. Doug wanted to do some stuff Doug wanted to do, and they told him, you got to do this, Doug. And Doug said, that's it, I'm out. They had a press conference with Doug at the end of the season, just a few weeks before he left. Doug was not fired, he left.
I don't know. I think Doug might have got fired too. That was a 4-11 in one season.
He was 4-11-1, but he was also at the press conference, the end of the season press conference and everything. Doug was supposed to be back, and they went to Doug because Doug was tired of all the show up on Monday and tell us what you're going to do, and we're going to have a conversation about everything, Doug. And Doug, we want you to do this, and Doug, we want you to do that. And Doug's like, and they wanted Doug to get rid of the guy he wanted to promote to offensive coordinator. His name escapes me at the moment. And Doug is like, I'm tired of y'all telling me what to do. Y'all gonna let me coach this team or not? Doug was at the end of the season press conference. They had every intention of moving forward with Doug. Doug quit. That's what happened.
I think it was DiFilippo, I believe.
Well, if you guys were gonna lean towards whether one side or not, if they're gonna keep Sirianni or gonna get rid of Sirianni, where would you guys fall? And then I guess, what do you want to see happen? So kind of, what you think is going to happen and what you want to see happen.
I think this is a 2-game audition for Nick Sirianni. Like I said, this is Nick Sirianni's. This is the most adversity we've seen from Nick Sirianni during his coaching tenure. Everything from Nick, for the most part, has been pretty rosy. Yep. He got this team to a playoff when they weren't supposed to get there in 2021. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No shame with that. This team kind of overachieved. That's a good coaching thing. He got this team to a Super Bowl, regardless who his players were, regardless who his coordinators were, regardless of what the schedule was. Nick got this team to a Super Bowl. That just doesn't happen with bad coaches. Nick now is in a situation where he started 10-1. There's a collapse, a Rich Kotite type collapse, we mind you. And there's a situation going on now where Nick has a 2-game audition in my mind. If Nick is the guy that we say Nick is, if Nick is the leader of men he should be able to rally this team, get them to refocus, and regardless of what we see last week, turn this around and show us something in Week 18 and in the playoffs.
He should have done that a minute ago. He's dug his grave, man.
Yeah, the thing is, but again, like Devontae, I talked to Devontae Smith at the bye week. This team was fine at the bye week. There were no issues. This team was fine after Buffalo. This team was arguably fine after San Francisco and Dallas, because you're not talking me out of this. They lost to San Francisco and Dallas because we were in a gauntlet. No, everybody forgets the Dallas Cowboys did not reach the hard part of their schedule. And look, when they got to the hard part of the schedule, they started losing. They lost to Buffalo. They lost to Miami. They had issues with Seattle. They had issues with the Detroit Lions. Should have lost that game. The San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys, two of the best teams in the NFC, had 10 days rest for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were screwed in the schedule in that point. This team, to me, fractured at Seattle. I can't prove that. I don't have any evidence of that. Nobody will talk to me about this. I think this team fractured at Seattle, and I think the Giants game, frustration was still building, and I think we saw the overflow of frustration. Sidney Brown is a rookie. Sidney Brown said, practice habits become game day results. Sidney Brown is saying, we don't work hard enough in practice. What do you expect us to do in games? I'm translating, but that's basically what he said.
On the flip side of that, it's incredibly, like, I think it's very, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, not noted, but I think people know that NFL practices are much easier than college practices, especially a guy from Illinois. I feel like that, that's Big Ten.
There are too many walkthroughs. I'm tired of everybody telling me, Jake, that this team is tired when all this team does is walkthroughs. The Baltimore Ravens work hard at practice. Remember, they lost 3 running backs in their training camp before last. The Detroit Lions are trying to kill each other in practice because all their coaches are former players. Knicks got this, and we let it ride. We saw signs of all this, like you said, Jake. We let it ride because this team was winning. Now they're not winning, and we go throw on the pads for a day.
That's what somebody asked Matt Patricia about that today at the press conference. Like, how do you work on tackling this late in the season? And the obvious answer and the known, you don't. This is what it is. It's week 17. Tackling ain't going to get any better. But his whole thing is like, well, we can work with some of the specialized pads and stuff like that. It's like, buddy, it is 2024. It is January. Tackling ain't getting better, friend. What the hell are you talking about?
When Dockery says Devontae needs a contract next year. The one thing about Devontae, though, Mr. Dockery, Devontae is a first-round draft choice, so they can actually put a 5th-year option on him. So they actually got another year to play with him and everything. Terrence Grandin was helping us out, Ray Rose. But somebody said something about Jalen, and this was something I wanted to get from you guys, too. What do you think about Jalen right now?
He got his 13th snap on Sunday with 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the second quarter. I mean, he can't. What do you? They ran the same offense with him when they're used to being able to be like, okay, you have 60 plays this game. Maybe some of them aren't going to be good, but when they had 49 plays, you can't play with that same type of urgency. And I thought Jalen he slung it pretty good on Sunday. I thought
Jalen played well enough to win.
I thought Jalen, for the limited action that Jalen got, I thought he slung it pretty good.
Jalen Hurts hasn't seemed like himself since the start of the season. Looks unhappy.
Jalen looks unhappy just in general. Unless Hulu is paying him to smile, Jalen is not going to smile.
Is there a possibility that Jalen is trying to live up to the big contract?
I don't think he cares.
Is he trying to prove to us that he's worth the money?
He's not doing a good job if he is.
The way I see it is like he got that knee injury early in the year. I don't think he ever has really overcome it because it's like, that's the type of injury where it's like if you keep running and keep, taking those types of hits, you're never going to really have that ability to fully, like, quote unquote, get your legs back under you. So personally, obviously there's no evidence to this. I feel like that's something that's hampering him. I think the drastic fall off from Steichen to Brian Johnson, in my eyes, is playing a gigantic role to the point where so much of the plays being made by Jalen is Jalen going off script.
Oh yeah.
The drawn up plays where it's the 3 to 5 step drop backs and going through your progress, so much of that type of stuff isn't there. It's there in bits and spurts and little things here and there, but it's not as consistent as it was last year. So I think him having to put that much more on his own plate to be I'd say creator and to make things happen on his own combined with that, in my eyes, the injury he suffered at the beginning of the year, I think that's I think that's taking its toll to the point where I think some of the struggles are him pressing. And that's not to, discount his mistakes, because he has made mistakes and he's made bad decisions. And him turning the ball over has contributed to them losing games. But just seeing the drastic differences in the offense, I'm just not at a point yet. And maybe if they get Brian Johnson for another year, which they better not, I'll get that out of the way, and Jalen was still like that even in year 2, then I'd be willing to put a little bit more blame on his plate. But I feel like for me, with how bad, in my eyes, the play calling's been, I'm just not going to kill Jalen for everything that's going on, because of basically, if Jalen Hurts wasn't Jalen Hurts, I don't think this Eagles offense is functioning even 50% of what it is right now. And it still isn't great right now.
And so for me, when it comes to that, is the way it's this offense, because this offense, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. The offense isn't asking Jalen to make decisions. They're telling him to read this and then do this when you read this. And the reads that they're having him make, and Nick has been open about this as well, is that he's running the same offense as he did last year. And if he's running the same offense as he did last year, buddy, if you used all offseason and all of this season and you're running the same offense, do you think other teams just wasted their time in the offseason seeing the most explosive and dangerous offense in the NFL? And they were just like, well, that's what they have. Bummer. Let's do our own thing. No, my guy, they spent all offseason seeing what things they could take from the Eagles offense and use for themselves. They spent the offseason looking at the Eagles offense and saying, how can we stop that? And then, buddy, they did. Buddy, they did exactly that. And if you're having Jalen do the same reads and make the same decisions off of the same things as he did last year, it's found out. If you don't make changes while everybody else makes changes, you're going to do worse. So I don't blame Jalen for the turnovers and stuff where he tries to throw the ball in between somebody in his face's arms when they have their arms up like this, like with the Jets, and it hits him in the arm and it gets intercepted. Yes, Jalen, that was very stupid. That was a dumb thing that you did. That was a very dumb thing that you did. But like a lot of these reads that he's making and where he's throwing the ball, he's not choosing to do that. They're telling him to do that. It's very stupid.
I also think a big part of it is just the stagnant nature of the offense, where all the run plays are from shotgun. Most of the run plays look the same, where you're not able to get that running back downhill and then work a play action play off of that where you get the defense to commit. Motion. Motion is essentially non-existent in the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And
least motion team in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying motion just for the sense of, just motion a guy out. But even some of that can help a quarterback identify coverages. Using motion to cross the wires of a defense, that can help a guy that isn't being helped necessarily with the play calling. Even if it's the same types of play calls, but you add more motion into them, that might create 1 to 2 or even 3 more opportunities to make a play a game. And that could be a major difference.
I'm looking at this. I remember it was the Eagles' second play of the game. They actually did a run from under center. And I looked at it, I was like, this is weird. We don't see this. We don't see this at all. And DeAndre Swift got 5 yards.
Oh, run from under center.
Yeah, run from under center, 5 yards. Hey.
I'm more impressed when they pass from under center. Like the wrinkle when we actually had Kenneth Gainwell throw a pass and stuff. I think I've counted. I think I've seen 2 passes from under center all season.
That's insane.
They're running the ball.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's basically, and I'm obviously not trying to distinguish a NFL offense as a high school offense. That's basically what I ran in high school. It was all shotgun and all shotgun runs and passes.
Yeah. You make your read and you do what the read tells you to do.
Yeah.
Like he's not making that all of these runs and everything. You think that Jalen is choosing to give or to take that ball based on what he's doing the read. and they're having him do the same reads, and it's incredibly stupid. It's very stupid and boring and dry, single-faceted. It's awful. It's awful.
Okay, so Quinn Dockery said that, we played a team that ranked last in rush defense. I think that's in yardage and yards per play.
Yeah,
I think they were 32nd in both of those.
32nd in defensive DVOA. It's brutal. They were terrible.
And they did to us what I thought we were going to do to them. Here, the coaching staff keeps our semi-injured quarterback running draw plays. The other problem with that is I don't feel like the teams actually respect Jalen as a runner anymore because they know he's injured. He doesn't have that same explosiveness. I think that's a problem.
And they know what to do with him. I mean, and it also doesn't help that he did get paid $50 million, and he, like we saw at I think we even saw it in like the first game of the season where he was sliding when instead of going and blasting through people. And Quentin Denard Wilson, I thought it was Denard Avery. Or are we thinking something different?
Denard Wilson. Well, the thing is, the Eagles' old defensive back coach, which was another, in my opinion, another Nick Sirianni snafu. We let this guy get out the door,
and look what he's doing.
Under Denard Wilson. James Bradbury was an All-Pro for the first time in his career. Darius Slay made his second Pro Bowl. He switched C.J. Gardner-Johnson from slot corner to safety, and what did he miss? 5 games last year, still tied for the league in interceptions?
Something like that.
He goes to Baltimore.
And Baltimore's defensive backs are insane.
Kyle Hamilton
coverage is oh, I can eat it up.
I mean, like Kyle Hamilton in that defense looks like the best safety in football when he's healthy.
Brother, he is.
What I hate to toot my own horn. Actually, I don't. So I will right now. If you want to see some genius, go to InsideEagles.com. Read 3 judgment errors that elevated the Ravens while stifling Philadelphia. That was written by, I don't know, some good-looking guy with long hair. But our defensive backs coach goes to Baltimore. I like Jordan Davis. I still believe in Jordan Davis. I don't believe Jordan Davis is a pass rusher. I think Jordan Davis is tired. I think Jalen Carter's hit a rookie wall. I think part of the issue with his defense, part of what Rashawn Desai ran into is when his defense was fresh, he was good. His guys started to hit some walls. Guys were injured. We always talked about how he was trying to shuffle bodies and things of that nature. Some bad things happened, but as much as like Jordan Davis, and I still believe he's going to be a good Eagle, one pick after Jordan Davis.
Oh, don't say it.
Was Kyle Hamilton.
God damn it.
It was one pick? Oh, man.
One pick after Jordan Davis was Kyle Hamilton. And I was hoping and praying, even though I knew they wouldn't. The Philadelphia Eagles haven't taken a defensive back in the first round. They've only done it 3 times. They've only taken the last time they took a defensive back in the first round was Lito Shepherd. That was 2002. That was their last first-round defensive back. I knew Kyle Hamilton wasn't going here. I remember when we took Brandon Graham. It worked out, but I wanted Earl Thomas. We don't take defensive backs in the first round. Now you got, instead of Nolan Smith, Brian Branch is out there. Think about some of this stuff. It's tough to watch, and I knew he wasn't getting Kyle Hamilton and stuff, but Kyle Hamilton on that Ravens defense gives me envy every time I think about it, because if you have Kyle Hamilton, you don't have to go out and get Kevin Byard, who you now probably have to see if you can trade because he's signed through the end of next season. Maybe we can use some of that steam to go after a linebacker with a trade as opposed to trying to trade for a safety because you got your Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton was one pick after Jordan Davis. Denard Wilson wanted the defensive. This team loved Denard Wilson, guys. All Darius Slay talked about was how smart this dude was.
And then
all Darius Slay talked about. Darius Slay said this 3 times. This dude deserves a coaching job, not a defensive coordinator, a coaching job. He goes to Baltimore. Lateral move. And you see what happens to our secondary, and you see what happens to ours. Like, I'll stand by this to the day I die. Marcus Epps was better last year than we give him credit for being.
Oh, 100%.
He was never going to be an all-star, but he got the most out of Marcus Epps, and that's what a coach is supposed to do. Our guys don't get the most out of guys. Why is Nolan Smith not playing? The only coaches I trust on this team are Jeff Stoutland and Tracy Rocker. Defensive line coach, offensive line coach. They're the only guys on this team I trust. That's it.
Man, how did we get here? How did we get here, man?
We were just in the Super Bowl in February. We thought we were going back.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, did we hit our Super Bowl hangover in week 13? Is that what happened?
I think it was late.
Delayed hangover, man.
Before
We told ourselves this team was resilient. And for a while, it looked like they might be. But we need resiliency now. This team is truly resilient. We got a week and a playoff game to prove it.
I've already seen what I needed to see. I did want to bring up one thing. You brought up Jordan Davis, first round pick last year, first round pick, defensive lineman who you would typically, you don't draft a first round defensive lineman if you only want him to play first and second down. One tackle yesterday, one tackle for Jordan Davis yesterday. And how many times did they run the ball?
One catch for A.J. Brown in the second half.
And talking about offensive woes. A.J. Brown got 6 targets yesterday. Freaking Kenny Gainwell got 5. It's broken. It's broken. Things it can't be fixed. It can't be fixed. Not with who's in that building right now. Not with who's in charge in that building.
They legitimately need a complete reset to figure out what they want to do, because their identity was for so long just this power team. But last year, you start hitting the explosive plays, and it's like they got addicted. It's like they got addicted to the explosive plays and forgot that a huge strength of their team is the offensive line and just punishing people. And they just don't use it.
And Shane Steichen's gone. And it's sad to believe that the departure of 2 coordinators did this.
That's crazy to think.
The departure of one coordinator and then the incredibly awful departure of another coordinator who made it so we didn't get Vic Fangio. That would be the other one. Yeah, Jonathan Gannon leaving is whatever, but the fact that we didn't get Vic Fangio after that, that's the kick in the pants is what that is. It ain't great. It ain't great. But yeah, no, the what's his name? James Conner, who apparently is an all-pro, ran the ball 26 times yesterday. Jordan Davis got 1 tackle. So I'm not out on Jordan Davis, but Jordan Davis, his ass is in the jackpot. Like he's on thin ice with your boy.
And we're not getting what we thought we were supposed to get. The strength of this team was supposed to be the defensive line. It was for a little while. It isn't right now.
Josh Sweat is playing.
Josh Sweat hadn't had a sack since. Josh Sweat hadn't had a sack since the Dallas game.
He hasn't had a sack since before the bye week.
That was his last sack. That sack on Dak Prescott before the.
Yep. Yeah. No, he's
rough.
Well. To be fair, he also had the one on Josh Allen that ended up being the horse collar. No, or was that Hassan? I can't remember.
I'm sure Josh Sweat hadn't had a sack since Dallas.
But there's been a few that have turned into the old intentional grounding and stuff like that. But yeah, no, undeniably underperforming. Everybody doesn't even matter what your expectations for them were. They're all underperforming. Everybody's underperforming on that defense. It's disgusting. Sidney Brown got a 99-yard pick 6, and no one cares. Who cares? Congratulations. Who cares?
I'm impressed with him. I like this statement. Sidney Brown says practice habits become game day results and stuff, and we're not physical enough to practice. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
All he wants to do is run through an MF's face.
My last thing, and obviously we can expand more with this on Friday because heading into obviously the last game of the year. What do you guys want to see? And like we do a bigger segment with this on Friday, but I guess to rephrase it, what do you absolutely need to see heading into the playoffs to give you any sliver of confidence that this team can make any sort of run beyond the first round?
200 yards from A.J. Brown.
I want to see that attitude back. I want to see this team look like they care. I have never seen a team look so deflated. As Jake mentioned before we came on the show, this was a double-digit favorite team.
Yeah, this is the most humiliating loss in a very, very long time.
The attitude isn't there. If this team looks like they care, AJ Brown is not selfish. Let's get that out of the way. I've heard Jordan Mailata and all these other guys talk about how great of a teammate he is and how great of a leader he is, how he got everybody together before the Giants game. AJ Brown is a good teammate. AJ Brown doesn't want to go out there and say something that, we're going to run with for the next 2 weeks. And AJ Brown knows he's emotional. And we want to stick a mic in front of his face a few minutes after the game is over with. But AJ Brown is also a captain. Can't come off the field shaking your head like, what the hell are we doing?
I mean,
I don't want to see Josh Sweat on the sideline with his head in his hands. Yeah, I just fight regardless of what happens. If I didn't see any fight. That's what ticked me off. It's a way to lose, and we learn a lot by losing. I got to see some fight.
I think for me, it comes down to it's like a repeat, but I need to see a dominant performance. I don't know if I'm going to get it. Honestly, like I don't know if I'm going to actually get that. I just want to see. I just want to see the Eagles team we saw in the beginning of the year. Just a glimpse of it.
I think they're dead.
Unfortunately, though, Brandon, we didn't dominate anybody at the beginning of the year, did we?
Also,
at moments we did. I guess at moments we did.
Second half of the Dolphins.
But we struggled with the Patriots.
I'd say the closest thing was the Vikings game, but even then, it's like they stormed back.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and how about this? 3 double-digit leads were blown this season. 9 double-digit leads this season. A lot of those we had to hang on to, as you mentioned, Brandon, but 3 double-digit leads ended up being losses. That's the first time in the history of this organization that's happened.
It ain't great. I do have to skedaddle. I have a show to get to.
But I guess we can end it there. As Brandon said, we'll hit it up on Friday. So, guys, we appreciate y'all. Hope we brought a little joy into your new year and things of that nature. We'll see what happens in week 18. We appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in to Inside the Eagles. Talk to you later.
Go Birds.